Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about three important subjects today. Number one is the latest developments from what's happening in Gaza. We've had another very intense day following the catastrophic day on Israel, where the Israeli army admitted that 24 of their soldiers were killed in a trapped house in Gaza, two of them. Actually, after a Hamas member from Al-Qassam brigades launched a Yasin 105 RPG on a tank that later detonated these houses with all of the soldiers inside them. The biggest attack that happened today was something very similar. So this just happened yesterday. The 24 who were killed, only what Israel admitted, obviously. Today, there was a trapped house in the western part of Khan Yunis. And Al-Qassam brigades confirmed that 15 Israeli soldiers were there. They exploded the house with them inside it with a TBG shell, and they killed all of them. That's only when it came to this particular house. We also had attacks on 4 Israeli vehicles, tanks, and soldier carriers from Al-Qassam brigades with RPG, Yasin 105 again. And when it comes to Saraya al-Quds, the armed wing of the PIJ, they focused more on mortar shellings on multiple soldier gatherings all across of Gaza. On the other hand, Israel is continuing its genocide. In the last 24 hours, they killed 210 civilians. They're attacking refugee shelters in Khan Yunis, refugee shelters. In the past 4 days, they attacked over 6 locations housing over 40,000 refugees. So the intensity of barbarism from this satanic death cult isn't going anywhere. They're still targeting civilians, and they're very frustrated because of their lack of success when it comes to the Palestinian resistance. And obviously, when you're unable to reach the resistance movements, you punish the civilians. This is the mindset of Israel ever since it was established. And the situation in Gaza isn't getting any better. I mean, we have Israelis blocking aid from Karm Abu Salim crossing point, which is on the border with Egypt and Israel. And there's lots of trucks not going in to Gaza. We have over 600,000 children being prevented from education. Over 570,000 people at the risk of total starvation. You have people in Gaza, most of them are currently living in only 20% of the territory in Gaza. And this is all planned. Israel wants this to expel the population of Gaza and commit their Nakba, their new catastrophe, their new ethnic cleansing campaign through this genocide, and by punishing the civil population in Gaza. And they're constantly failing with the resistance at the same time. And things aren't just atrocious in Gaza. In the West Bank, the prisoner committee, today they confirmed that Israel imprisoned over 6,255 people in the West Bank since the 7th of October. So if they want to reach a deal with Hamas, if they realistically want to reach a deal, and they want a ceasefire at some point, which it doesn't look like it, but I'm going to talk about the planned deal or a proposed deal that's being hidden as much as possible, but we're getting leaks, interesting ones. Why are they imprisoning so many people in the West Bank? Because that's only going to make things even more complicated when it comes to the negotiations. I mean, Hamas is not going to tell you, oh, okay, you imprisoned them after the 7th of October, we don't want them anymore. And they're going to have to release them. But they're making things more complicated. They killed over 400 people in the West Bank. Not many people are talking about the West Bank because obviously the big catastrophe is in Gaza. But still, what's happening is in the West Bank is no less genocidal than what's happening in Gaza. The situation in the West Bank is really, really tough. And you're hearing Israeli officials, one of them is the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, He's saying that the Arabs in Jerusalem are like the Arabs of Gaza, and we need to expel all of them. Hundreds of thousands of people. Imagine this genocidal, satanic mentality these people have. Now, all of this is coming at the same time that we're hearing reports about a proposed deal. So a couple of days ago, the Mossad sat down with the war cabinet in Israel and they gave them a proposal. So far, what's been leaked from this proposal is the fact that it's going to be 2 months, although Israeli media, including Ynet, they said it's only for 1 month. It's going to be 2 months, and Israel will stop the acts of aggression, the acts of war crimes in Gaza, and they're going to start releasing hostages bit by bit. But Hamas is not having any of that. We've had a confirmation today from the main spokesperson of Hamas in Lebanon, Osama Hamdan. He said that we won't accept anything but a permanent ceasefire and a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. He also said that this occupation has no horizon. So Hamas are full of faith that they're just going to end this occupation. And at the same time, Israel is trying to find a way out. They're stuck between the people who want to eliminate Gaza completely and between the other side who only want to end this war and get the hostages back and try and reach somewhat of a solution. But clearly, there are talks happening and there are tensions inside the government. So Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is one of Netanyahu's closest allies and a very racist far-right figure, most of them are racist, don't get me wrong here, but this guy, he said that if the war stops, we will not be in the government. This is coming at the same time that we're hearing reports from the Likud party. Obviously, these are all leaks that are distributed across multiple websites and news networks in Israel, that the Likud party is trying to reach a deal with Yair Lapid's party, the head of the opposition, at the expense of the far right, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and potentially Bezalel Smotrich. And that's why you had these statements from Itamar Ben-Gvir saying that if we will stop the war, we will get out of the government. Smotrich said that any long-term ceasefire will harm the military campaign and show our enemy weakness. So we shouldn't stop the war for a prolonged period. But you have Hamas, on the other hand, giving very bold statements telling them, no, you have to completely stop this war. And at the same time that these very sensitive negotiations are going on, and many people in Israel, in Israel leadership, they're saying that people shouldn't be talking about what's happening because that will only hinder the negotiations and potentially prevent us from reaching a solution. Remember how Netanyahu has a massive distrust issue with all of the war cabinet and his closest people in the war cabinet? And how he was checking the IDF chief, security checking him. How once Gallant's aide, who is the defense minister, was caught recording a meeting. Well, they had a leak today. And this leak is to do with the negotiations. Imagine, so the people who have it in for Netanyahu in this government, they'll go out of their way to make anything he does or tries to do fail. What was the leak? The leak was Benjamin Netanyahu saying, obviously something not in the press, but in this meeting, saying that the Qataris are more difficult to deal with than the United Nations and the Red Cross, and he's bad-mouthing the Qataris. And they returned him a favor. We had the spokesperson for the Qatari Foreign Ministry saying that what Netanyahu is claimed to be saying is appalling and that it hinders our efforts to reach a ceasefire that can potentially save lives. So these people are very angry with him. Clearly, he said those things, and people who are very close to him are leaking them because they don't want him to reach any solution. They don't want any success coming out of Netanyahu. So all of this war cabinet, all of this government is willing to harm Israel for their own benefits. So they act like they are for Israel or whatever it is, but they're very similar to Netanyahu, most of them. They'll hinder any potential progress just so that Netanyahu can't walk out as if he's accomplished something. So it's very, very tense. The level of distrust between these people, the level of hatred, the level of bitterness, and how badly they speak of each other. They call each other names like evil, vile individuals. They almost had fights in some meetings that I spoke about previously. So the tensions are so high and deep between them. And yet we don't hear these things on mainstream media, especially in the Western mainstream media. And I always repeat, if this happened in any other country that the US or the EU didn't like and they wanted to have a coup in, the situation would have been gone a very, very long time ago. Instead, you have the US forming a coalition with Britain and some other countries going to attack Yemen, and now parts of Iraq, for attempting a blockade against a genocidal state that's committing crimes against humanity. I mean, Israel killed more children. You're talking about 11,000 children since this war began, since this genocide crime against humanity began. 11,000 children in just under 4 months. You're talking about more children killed in a war than 11 years in Syria, than throughout the whole war on Iraq, the whole war in Afghanistan, and quadruple what Russia killed in Ukraine. Yet you have the United States administration, the British government, and this genocide coalition in the Red Sea going to attack Yemen when they haven't killed an ant. The Houthis, Ansarullah, they haven't killed an ant in Yemen. Yet these people are going and attacking them, a country that's in poverty, trying to do something moral and decent, more moral than all of these people in governments here in the UK or in the US and in other countries as well, and attacking them instead of going and telling Israel, you need to stop this genocide and once and for all dismantle apartheid, please, and just have one state with equal rights. Very simple. This solution that I constantly talk about, very simple and straightforward. And many people are talking about the two-state solution now. The two-state solution is dead. It has been dead for a very, very long time. You cannot implement it. All you need is to simply dismantle apartheid and implement equality, implement a real democracy that represents people, one man, one vote between the Jordan River to the sea, so that people can live equally. And those who don't like it, they can go to an island and implement supremacy on themselves. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is yet another threat from the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant against Lebanon. Now, he made a statement a couple of days ago saying that even if Hezbollah stop attacking Israel, hinting that if they might reach a ceasefire with Gaza, that we will continue our attacks against Hezbollah up until we implement a new security reality, and so that our settlers can go safely back to their homes without the threat of any action being taken against them, because there's a lot of pressure from these settlers who have been evacuated from their homes, both in the north and the south. You have 250,000 people displaced inside of Israel and 2.5 million people already outside of Israel, 80% of which are not coming back, according to a recent poll by the World Zionist Organization. So now, what is he saying? He's saying the war on Lebanon, it will be painful for Israel, but it will be disastrous for Hezbollah and Lebanon. So he's still making these statements against Lebanon. And many people are suspecting that even if we come to a temporary ceasefire, which isn't looking like it's going to happen, I mean, it's really hard to reach an agreement where both parties can agree on it. It's very, very, very difficult, because what Hamas carried out on the 7th of October, it was the most successful military campaign when it comes to group versus military in the 21st century, like Scott Ritter said previously. And we all know that the massacres were committed by the Israeli forces against the Israeli civilians. So Israel can't handle having this reality in the south. And at the same time, Hamas know how much they're weakening Israel. Obviously, we're concerned about Gaza, about the level of destruction, about the people, about the day-to-day suffering, the basic things, the food, the education, the hunger, the medicine, the pain that these people go through. But in the grand scheme of things, if you look at it from a bigger picture, it's Israel that's having an exodus. It's Israelis who are fleeing Israel because of what's happening, not Gazans. These people stick to their land because they know it's theirs, and because they know that Israel is trying to implement another Nakba similar to what they did in 1948. But now people can't be fooled. They can't be promised that, yeah, you'll be able to come back next week or when this war ends, and then they'll close the borders like they did with the 750,000 Palestinians that they expelled in 1948. The people in Gaza know that very well. As a matter of fact, some of the people who know Israel the most are the people in Gaza. This is how they managed to have such a successful offensive against the Israeli military and take down the whole Gaza division in a couple of hours, really. So when it comes to the actual ceasefire, and lots of talks are happening now, there might be something, but it's not very likely unless there is a clear submission from Israel. Obviously, Israel is trying to draft a deal that will give it some sort of flexibility. We obviously had reports from Hamas saying that we did receive proposals, but we did not receive guarantees that the war will stop following this, and they don't want to repeat from what's happened with the temporary ceasefire previously, because Israel said there's a potential of carrying out an exchange day after day and continue the temporary ceasefire, but they didn't. They actually signed the breaking of this temporary ceasefire. Yoav Gallant signed it, saying that we're going back to attack Hamas when they had an option not to. So Hamas don't want to be in that same situation again, which is potentially a right move when you're talking about the long run, because if they do agree to a temporary ceasefire, obviously there's going to be a temporary relief for the people in Gaza, but Israel is going to come back and they're going to have a long-term campaign. And Hamas, Osama Hamdan, today said, again, the representative of Hamas in Lebanon, he said there is no horizon for the occupation. So these people are very, very confident. And there was another spokesperson, Al-Kilani, who was also from Lebanon. He had an interview with TRT. He also said that it's just a matter of time up until Benjamin Netanyahu admits defeat. Imagine how certain these people are. Admits defeat and completely ends this. And obviously Netanyahu, he's stubborn. It's not looking like he's going to admit to any defeat. And what we're only seeing is his continuation of this stubbornness and his defiance against the international community, albeit an international community supportive of Israel and its genocide. But they obviously warned him. And we've seen a reduction in the level of intensity and brutality from Israel after the temporary ceasefire ended. Because don't forget, in the first part of this war, you've had 16,000 people killed in Gaza in just over 30 days. In the following 3 months, you've had a lot of people killed, 8,000 people, 9,000 people till now. We have over 25,700 approximately killed, which is atrocious, disastrous. But it's not at the same level as the first part, which signals that there was a warning and that Israel did follow certain warnings when it came to the intensity And it could also be partially because of the ammunition, because of the bombs, because of the US supply. Because don't forget, Israel relies heavily, especially with its Air Force, on the US ammunition. And now they don't have the same capacity when it comes to attacking Gaza at the same intensity that they did before. So they're relying on the length of the military campaign to put pressure on the civil society in Gaza, on the Palestinians in Gaza, and make them give up. But they won't be able to make the people of Gaza give up. And these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope I add some beneficial information for you, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.